In the first Los Angeles, in the years before World War II, the Boyle Heights section of East Los Angeles, just across the river from downtown, was a center, really the center of Jewish culture in Los Angeles. As second Los Angeles dawned, the neighborhood was really isolated from the rest of the city and region by a tangle of new freeways. Freeways were being built all over the region, of course, but nowhere were they rammed through a neighborhood with the intensity and really the violence that happened in Boyle Heights. Over time, though, in second Los Angeles, in the post-war decades, that isolation actually proved to be a surprising source of strength for the neighborhood. It became an enclave of Latin American and in particular Mexican American immigration. And by the 70s and 80s, it had really become a settled neighborhood, not of newcomers, but of second and even third generation immigrants, and a neighborhood that really had a strong sense of itself and its identity. And what that's meant now, as people and interest and money move east, and gentrification is at Boyle Heights' doorstep, is that the neighborhood has been able to fight back against the forces of change much more effectively and with a lot more unity than other neighborhoods around the region. And the question is, what will become of one of the surprising cultural success stories of second Los Angeles in this new city with development and money pouring in from all corners? One way to answer that question might be to go even further east, away from the shiny new developments of Boyle Heights, and dig beneath the surface of the seemingly placid and nondescript cul-de-sacs and strip malls of the eastern edge of East LA, where a new kind of multicultural energy of the third Los Angeles is reconstituting itself, improving in some surprising ways, immune to the flattening forces of homogenization and displacement.
If you look at a map of Boyle Heights, you're talking about a 4 square mile area. It's an area that's literally hemmed in by the construction of 5 intersecting freeways in the area. So this area was literally quarantined by highway construction and urban renewal during the 1950s and 60s. Boyle Heights was one of the first suburban residential communities for businessmen and families who were tied to the initial development of downtown Los Angeles. At the time, Boyle Heights was what we would call a fancy residential neighborhood with Victorian mansions. The demographics were primarily white, upper middle class families. And so it was probably around the 19-teens and 1920s that you began to see a shift from the old downtown class of entrepreneurs and their families to a more racially and ethnically diverse immigrant and working class community. It was in the 50s and 60s when you began to see the massive displacement of residents from Boyle Heights to make way for the intersection of the 5 major freeways. So the 5 freeway, the 101, the 10, the 60, they all converge upon Boyle Heights. It was part of the city's effort to get rid of slums in Los Angeles. For the people who did protest the coming of the freeway, it was a lost battle. There was simply no way to fight a powerful state highway building authority who eventually bulldozed its way into Boyle Heights. East Los Angeles, and Boyle Heights in particular, emerged as the epicenter of all of the social ferment that emerged around the Mexican-American civil rights movement. And I think since then, Boyle Heights continues to represent the culture, the life of Mexican descent peoples in the United States. It's still the barrio, with a capital of B.
My family first arrived here in the 1920s because of the Mexican Revolution. We have really strong roots in this community, and they played an active role in kind of shaping it, through the decades. So a lot of Latinos, when they arrive to the U.S., they arrive in the middle of suburbia and thinking about where's the plaza at? Where do they go to meet people? Where do they go to find community? Where do they go to find identity? But in the suburbs, we don't have that. The Latinos are kind of recreating that in their own way, how the East Base. It's a way of kind of redefining who you are in this American context. So I want to show you one of the good examples of a front yard shrine. It's the way Latinos are using their front yards to express their cultural identity, and a lot of them put shrines in their front yard. And this house here is interesting because, like in most houses that you see in the suburbs that have the garage in the front, the house is really dead. Like the one next door, that's what you see typically. But this is a Latino version of that. So now the garage becomes a big family room. It becomes, again, part of this whole indoor-outdoor lifestyle. Behind us is the 101 freeway, and during the 50s and 60s, the east side was devastated with a lot of freeways. But this is the way the community kind of fights back and kind of reappropriates space that they lost, that's maintained by the two women that live on the east side of the dead-end street. They soup it up every week. They have electricity sometimes from their house that runs to light it up. And it's been a really important part of the community identity. And then we have a no parking sign here that's been turned into a cross. And during Easter time or during Christmas time, this cross is decorated. So you have this kind of really interesting kind of transformation of space on the east side.
The million-dollar question is how Boyle Heights is going to fare in the face of gentrification. There is right now a backlash against gentrification in cities throughout the nation, but Boyle Heights also sustains that backlash. Right now, you're seeing a kind of tension in the way that these dynamics are playing out. On the one hand, Boyle Heights is becoming more integrated into the city because of the extension of new public transit programs like the Metro Rail. On the other hand, that very development is also opening the doors for a new phase of gentrification. As falls Echo Park, so falls downtown, Boyle Heights, and beyond, further into the San Gabriel Valley. Falls may or may not be the right word. It depends on whose perspective you're looking from.
The San Gabriel Valley is growing up. It's growing up right now. And so that's the next chapter, is how do we accommodate that? How do we keep the livability very high and the quality of life high? If any place within the greater San Gabriel Valley is going to see a lot of densification, I think it's going to be El Monte. It is a transit hub, and so they're going to be able to leverage that unlike any other city.
Running's a part of me already. To be able to escape and absorb the landscape around you, you know. I don't even run with headphones because I want to hear the sounds of the world, you know. I think it's all part of the adventure and it's part of exploring your landscape. I grew up in the city of El Monte. I've always stayed within the San Gabriel Valley because it feels like home. My name's Anthony Solorzano. I am the writer-director of a movie called Varsity Punks. I wrote Varsity Punks about 7 years ago, and then I wrote a few other screenplays, and I wasn't finding success by selling the stories, so I said, I gotta produce one. We wanted to shoot something in our local neighborhood that showed off our culture and also involved running. The fact that it was gonna be in my hometown and, you know, trying to represent a culture that's underrepresented, because I think the San Gabriel Valley and El Monte's completely underrepresented, at least in Hollywood movies. I don't even think that the SUV is in a lot of people's radars in LA.
He's been really, really effective at getting the support and the excitement of the community. It's not him doing it alone. It's really a community coming together to support his project and having fun with it. As far as the role of artists goes in the role of gentrification, we don't have real estate developers that are looking towards what Varsity Punks are doing in El Monte as a sign of whether they should come in and invest. What they're looking for is communities where they are able to acquire cheap property because of disinvestment in these communities. They're looking for opportunities to make money, and that has to do with other factors besides the art.
Capital, development, investment is always looking to conquer new frontiers. Even if they're old frontiers that have already been conquered and became dilapidated, you know, over time they can become new frontiers for reinvestment all over again. Change is one constant about urban life in general. And I think all of these communities are going to be affected in both positive and negative ways by the changes that we're seeing right now.
The gentrification element of it, people talk about it a lot, and it's part of evolution, improving places as long as it's done with the intention of restoring and keeping the community alive. You just want to embrace where you grew up and where your memories are from and where your friends are from. It's a different place. It's my place. The city has a lot of things wrong with it, but it's home. It's our home.